Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. Remind me of your name?
My name is Ryan.
Ryan. Yes. Thank you for interviewing us.
Absolutely. And can I hear both of you?
No, just me. We're going to triple line Jenny, or you want to do it on speaker or something?
Okay. Well, I could do you want to call her, or should I call her?
Sure.
Okay.
You're the one. Are you recording this?
Yeah. Oh, that's...
Yeah. I think you should call her for whatever technical integrity. It might. Who knows what the triple line recording brain does?
Okay. Sure. Give me just a sec.
I'm looking at her. You're doing?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the number again because...
His name is Ryan. He's calling you now. Not happening?
All right.
Hello?
Are we all here?
Hello. Hi.
Tim? Okay, I see.
Hello?
I think we're all here.
Cool.
Oh, Jen, you're on. You gotta talk on. Oh, you have your earbuds.
Oh, is my sound?
No, I can hear you.
How's this? Yeah.
It's fine. I'm just looking at you so I get the optical illusion of the delay. Not an optical illusion. The reality of the delay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you live in Wilmington, North Carolina?
Well, I did briefly. I live in Greenville, North Carolina.
Oh, your area code is Wilmington?
Yeah, my cell phone.
I love Wilmington.
Oh.
I used to cut my hair there once a year.
Really?
Yeah, I just one time was playing. There used to be this DIY venue above a lawyer's office. Did you know this place? It was a long time ago, 15, 20 years ago.
I don't know it, but I'm interested.
Well, there was so one time I was on tour and we played there and I shaved my head. And then a year later we played there again and I was like, oh, this is the place I shaved my head last time. I guess I'll shave my head. And then it was really I only cut my hair when our booking agent sent us through Wilmington. And there was that great ship in the harbor.
Oh, yeah.
It was very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful port city.
Yeah. So tell us about your magazine.
Yeah, Issues Magazine is a monthly magazine that's run by a cooperative of people. There's 4 of us. We tend to focus on DIY music and art, but we also like to report on fringe events and esoteric groups and things like that as well. So we've been doing it for a long time. Well, long time as far as I'm concerned. It's 77 issues now. And
that's a long time?
Yeah.
77 months.
That's true, yeah. And I do most of the design, editing, that end of things, but I also conduct interviews. And I got in touch with you because your music had been sent to be reviewed by us a few times. And so I was like, this is really, really good music. I should
thank you.
Contact this person.
Please. Thank you. It's all Jenny.
Hey, hell yeah.
Well, thank you.
So speaking of which, this is being recorded, just so you know. And
yeah.
The way this normally works is this interview, the print version of it will be in our November 1st edition, and then
Great.
after that we'll release the audio of the interview. And
Sounds good.
other than that, you have free reign really to talk about anything and everything you want to. I don't mind rambling at all. I kind of like people to be themselves. So,
All right.
So
We shall be ourselves.
first question: what are your names and where are you in time and space?
Jen, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Jenny. I guess stage name is Pulse, Jenny Pulse. Currently, I'm in Green Bay, Wisconsin, visiting my folks, and I'm sitting in a wine bar.
Nice.
Speaking of you.
Yeah, and my name is Tim. I am married to Jenny. I am visiting her parents, and I am smoking a cigarette out front of the wine bar on the main street of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Of downtown Green Bay.
Downtown Green
Yeah.
Bay. I've never made it there.
Yeah.
I've been in Milwaukee before, but never to Green Bay.
Yeah, Green Bay isn't really in between two places that people go,
Right.
and there's not really like a reason to like. It's just all based around the football team.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the smallest city that has a pro sports team, so people are obsessed. There's really like, it's basically the entirety of Green Bay culture.
I'm looking at a trash can, and the top is yellow, the bottom is green. Like, so I'm looking at a fire hydrant. It's green and it's yellow.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's kind of funny because Greenville, where I live now, is kind of like that with the college team.
Oh.
ECU is the biggest industry here. And so like all the cigarette places are purple and yellow, and like the gas stations have purple and yellow, and like it's just
Yeah, you know, I used to teach like popular culture and media studies classes, and there was like for like freshmen at a community college, and it was really alarming that like I couldn't explain to them, and this, I don't think this is just my lack of, maybe I was a bad teacher, but I got the job and I did my best, but I could not make people understand what the difference between the government and corporations were.
right.
Like the average Chicago teenager could not discern what is a corporation from what is government. And
Right.
this is a good
Or what a
good
what a
example of that.
corporation or a cult is, you know.
Oh, that's a
It's like
motorcycle.
really hard to
That sounded
tell
really
what
cool
the
for me.
difference is sometimes.
Oh,
It
I
did
hear
sound
you.
cool, and I heard it in a delay.
All right.
It sounded like a
Yeah, so that's where-
synthesizer being cut. Yeah, telling the difference between a cult and a corporation is not always the easiest thing, is it? Especially when it involves branding and stuff.
Yeah, that's what all those, that like, do you know those disinformation books? What's his name? Richard Meltzer?
Oh yeah.
You know that stuff?
Yeah,
Right,
I'm
you said you
familiar.
guys deal with the esoteric. Yeah. I mean, that's his whole thing, how like the cults and corporations and cults, you know, the same sort of ideology.
Yeah, the same sort of methodology, you know.
Methodology, better word. I was like, ideology isn't the right word.
Methodology is the right word. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm into it. I mean, not, you know what I mean.
You're into observing it.
I'm into
Yes.
observing it and as a
Yeah.
force in society, not necessarily into doing it.
Right.
So
Well, recognizing it as a force in society is a way of liberating yourself from it.
True. So, how did you all meet one another and decide to share a project together?
Jen, I defer to you.
Oh, you defer to me. Oh, that's funny because I don't quite recall.
You don't quite recall?
You? I don't quite recall. No.
You don't remember how we met?
Oh, I guess I do, but I don't want to tell. I don't want to be the one who tells that story.
Huh? All right.
I mean, we were friends. And we had a lot of friends in common. I was a fan of her music. And then it was like, oh, this makes more sense than anything else. It was just kind of inevitable.
Nice.
Right. Well, what happened was I was friends with him, sort of, but I think I got an email out of the blue seeing if I wanted to sing on this record called Friend Enemy, and I thought, well, that seems like something I wouldn't do, so why not? And then that's how we got to know each other.
Right, but I'd already set up a show for you at that point.
That's true. Right,
And, like,
so you kind of knew who I was, but I didn't know who you were.
Right. Well, I mean, I'd
What
seen
I'm
you
saying.
play a couple times, and yeah.
Indeed.
And what was there another process in collaborating musically?
At that point?
Yeah.
Oh, that was totally different. That was just like the music was done and the vocals were done, but I wanted the vocals to be a duet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I needed and I was like, man, I like this woman, Jenny Pulse. She should be the other singer. Yeah, so we kind of met through collaborating. I mean, or we got to know each other through that.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What do you...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
What do you enjoy listening to when you're alone and free to do whatever you want?
I like listening to Henry Flint, You're My Ever Lovin', just like on repeat.
Do you know Henry Flint?
I don't think so.
He's like one of those Table the Elements, like old minimalist guys, but he's kind of like the wild. He played real scratchy violin. It sounds, that song she named, You're My Ever Lovin', that specifically, every time I hear it, I'm like, this is what I wish the Grateful Dead sounded like. Like, when people tell me how much they love the Grateful Dead, I'm always like, I don't know, man. It sounds like shit. But then I hear You're My Ever Lovin', and it's like, feels like that's what people are explaining.
Okay, so was he from...
Yeah,
you said he was a minimalist and like Grateful Dead. Is he from that era?
Yeah, he's like 60s minimalist guy.
Got you.
Yeah, I don't know. I listen to all kinds of stuff. I don't know. We really enjoy house music and techno, and that's not like going out alone. Like,
No, I just meant in the privacy of your own space.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. I really like, I think we both listen to lots of things each day that we haven't heard before.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
But then,
Or try to like re-remember, like lately I've been listening to a lot of the Turtles and the Everly Brothers and Carole King.
Oh wow. Carole King.
And just remembering and feeling like this idea of innocence or something, even though it wasn't necessarily an innocent time.
No, yeah. My parents listened to a lot of Tapestry.
Tapestry?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a Carole King record?
same.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's interesting.
that's my dad's favorite record, I think.
It's one of my
As a
dad's.
person who
It's one of
doesn't
my
even
dad's.
like music.
Yeah, my dad same way. Yeah, it's cool.
Do your
Yeah.
parents, are they music fans? Do they listen? Did you
They
grow up
like
listening to
listening to
music via
music.
them?
They like listening to music. They don't perform it. My dad really. My dad has
Right.
good taste in music. He likes a lot of like late '60s and early '70s, psychedelic stuff. And like I remember being like 3 and he's listening to Black Sabbath and with me and stuff like that. My mother Yeah, I don't appreciate her taste in music quite the same. She's more into like arena rock stuff from the late 70s. But
Oh wow.
But yeah, they definitely were musical people in that they played music in the house a lot.
Right. Yeah, my parents had no interest in music.
Oh wow.
Which is a totally baffling thing to me. Like, I really don't understand people who just don't respond to music.
Yeah, especially considering that you became, a musician.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it was like a very primal, early formative thing for me. Like, I was 2 years old and I told my parents I'm going to be in a band, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, but I got introduced to couple Kiss records when I was 2 and 3 that really rewired my circuitry.
Oh, nice.
Or I guess at that point, kind of wired my circuitry.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, I was going to ask you that too. Is when you were younger, like maybe early teens or something, a lot of times, what media that like did you encounter that changed your perspective and really significantly affected you?
Besides music?
No, what, like when you were like younger I'm sorry, I'm asking about music.
What format
what media
of music
came your way that when you heard it when you were like younger, it immediately turned you on in a new way?
Well, I sort of had this incredible fate where like where I grew up was just like a kind of concrete wasteland, but there was this used punk record store that was like a 15-minute walk from my parents' house, and it was kind of like if I was going to walk anywhere, that was the place. Like there was nowhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
So until a second record store opened nearby, and later I found out that these were kind of destination places. So there's a couple people who were like, a couple years older than me who really curated things for me. So like when I was a kid, it was kind of just like the punk bands that had logos,
Okay.
And then like crossover music, like the hardcore and thrash scenes like DRI and COC and stuff.
Sure.
And then when I got a little bit older, like when Spiderland came out, I was like a junior in high school, and the guy at the record store was like, "You got to check this out," And so I feel like very lucky to have like had people like that who knew my tastes, and it's still kind of like that. Like, not so much post-pandemic, but really like up until the last few years, I have been friends with people at the record stores, and they tell me this is a thing you're gonna like.
What about you, Jenny?
I think I had a more isolated experience with music, and I think it really started with television. Not the band television, but watching TV. And like there was this show Tiny Toons
Yeah.
that played like covers of soul songs. Like I remember them doing a cover of Respect, and I was like, this is the best song ever, and it completely changed my idea. Like, I think that was like the first instance where I was like, music is transformative, right?
Hell yeah.
Through like a cartoon that of a soul color of like Aretha Franklin, it's crazy. But then also like other intimacies like later on of like, even like past like Napster or like LimeWire, like the downloading of music online, because like very much of like this digital age growing up.
Oh, absolutely.
And like when like you could send files on AIM, which is like AOL Instant Messenger, if anyone remembers that.
Oh, I do.
And
yeah.
and I had this like crush in Cleveland, like somebody, like a roadie that I met, that was like a friend of like a band that was on tour. And I was just like, I'm in love with this person, and we're gonna send each other like, you know, Tom Waits and Nick Cave, and like talk about how we wish they were our dads, and like PJ Harvey, and just like all this super formative stuff. And like Chet Baker though also, and just like all these like sappy love songs and shit, and that was, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, what?
I think I should point out too that like Kiss was like she's saying that cartoons were her access point. Excuse me. But Kiss was basically a cartoon. Like if it wasn't for Kiss in the 70s, like I don't know if I would have accessed music in the same way, because it was cartoon characters, you know, cartoon superheroes, and they each had their own different sort of powers and stuff, and they really. Oh, Jenny accidentally hung up on us.
Oh shit! Really? Okay, I'll.
You want to call it?
Continue your thought.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's my only point, that Kiss was also a cartoon. So the same way that she got it through Rugrats or whatever.
Oh, Tiny Toons, but yeah. Well, I think Kiss actually did have a couple cartoons, like Christmas specials and stuff.
Oh yeah,
like that.
yeah, for sure, yeah.
But let me call Jenny again.
Okay. He's calling you back now. Hang out here for a minute. Watch these.
Okay, hello.
Hi, I think we're back together again.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had my earpods on and then they died, and something happened.
You sound much better now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is clear.
Yeah.
Something in the
your
satellite
fidelity
realm
is
busted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. My next question was going to be, do you guys have any daily rituals?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, ours differ slightly, but have remained relatively the same in the sense that we both get up, have probably some sort of caffeine, although I'm trying to see what it's like to not have caffeine immediately, make a green juice, go into like separate rooms for hours and meditate. I've been I think, speaking of cults, I think I'm partially in one just by doing this practice, but I got led into, I don't know if you've heard of Sadhguru, but there's this meditation that's like, I don't know, 15 minutes long, led by him. It's called like the Isha Kriya, and it's basically like saying or listening to, as you inhale, I'm not the body, exhale, I'm not even the mind, and doing that for like probably some sort of, like, if I had to guess, 108 times, you know, because that's like the right number, and then just like chanting and going, oh, for, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, what would the right number be? I want to say 13, but 99. That's probably not it. Yeah. and then it's just some sort of chant, and it just like sets me straight, do some extra breathing, and then go into whatever books I'm reading, and then read for like as long as possible until like my mind comes back to me and is like, get the fuck to work. And then I check my email, and then like the day is ruined.
How
I'll
about
let
you,
Tim. Yeah.
How about me in terms of rituals?
Yeah, do you have any daily rituals?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like she said, it's we have some real privileges. For example, we don't have children, which a lot of people our age do, and we don't have jobs that require certain, like we get to create our own hours. Like I have this ridiculous job. I write ad copy for hearing aids, but I don't even do that anymore. I just edit AI for hearing aid companies. So I get like a quota, like you need 40 done by Friday, and I just do them whenever I want. So, yeah, we wake up, we meditate, we write, we read. I shouldn't say we, because I don't know what she does in her room. My specific sequence is meditating, then writing, then reading, then writing again. Then I work at like whatever kind of creative thing has a deadline. And then I go for a long walk in the gym every day. And then and that's a really good hour. Like, I was never like an athletic kid or anything. It really never occurred to me to go to the gym till I was like 39 years old.
Yeah.
But now, now I'm 49 next month, and I couldn't imagine. I get tense and weird if I don't go, because I need that hour of just walking around with my headphones on, and
I feel you.
yeah, and then I try to do my job that gives me money that I don't enjoy doing when I'm at my lowest energy. When like when there's the least potential for me to do anything interesting, then I am just like, okay, plug. And I feel very lucky to be able to have a job like that.
Absolutely.
Because I've certainly had a lot of jobs that ate up my creative hours.
Right. That's a big problem with life as it is.
Yeah.
So, do you write in studio, or do you write first and then go to studio?
We record. I mean, like all the Good Fuck EPs and our albums were recorded at home. So yeah, it's a pretty unified process, writing and recording. Now it's shifted a little bit. Maybe Jenny could explain that.
Yeah, well, with Giddy Skelter, we spent 2 years taking advantage of the pandemic and really, like I said, diving into these kind of like occult themed books, using different rituals to access a system to write the record that was not necessarily guided by our minds, I guess, and rather like some sort of
or our biases,
chance.
yeah,
or our biases, right? And like even writing lyrics. Tim wrote all of the lyrics pretty much for that record, besides like my revisions. If I was like the one singing it, I would revise it to make it be something that was singable. But otherwise, all the words came from him, and we, spent a whole night probably like lighting a candle, doing something weird, and then pulling, these single lines and then placing them onto a piece of paper and seeing, like, could this be a song? Should we try singing it like this?
Right.
And that's just one
we
example.
We kind of did everything we could to let the songs emerge more than trying to force them into being. You know what I mean? Like, we tried to like get out of the way and just see what the universe wanted the song to be.
That was related to another question I had because of when I was listening to. Well, I listened to everything that was on the Bandcamp for the Tim Kinsella and Jenny Pulse. I also went to your website, and I definitely got the impression that it has a lot of intention in it, but it doesn't. It seems like almost like it's you set something into gear and then it happens instead of like.
I think you just totally nailed it.
Okay.
It's very intentional. It's very intentional, but it's very much. We don't write songs as much as we create systems for songs to emerge.
Very good. Yeah, I find that very interesting.
So do we. In fact, we find it so interesting we've basically bet the entire meaning of our lives into it.
Very cool. Now,
Sort of.
I think so.
I mean, sometimes, yeah. No, it is. It is.
When you write, do you feel that there's a visual construction to your work? And I ask that because when I was listening to like Giddy Skelter and Gimme Altamont, I got the impression that things were layered, but it reminds me of a painting because it's more like there's an underpainting throughout the thing that is then layered on top of, as opposed to the traditional sound of a song, which would be here's a part, then here's a part, then here's a part. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is that do you think that there is a visual construction to what you do?
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
yes.
Well, yeah, because it is. I found that to be necessary because of the chance element to everything else. Like creating a visual element for us, or like a visual world, like a simulation, basically.
Yeah.
To live in while editing the songs was very necessary. And the working title for the majority of the record was The Woods. Which was just like being like, okay, we're in a birch woods. There's like these mythological animals that maybe this character Giddy is encountering at the time, and that was primarily it. Like, even more so, I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about the record, and maybe even like in press or something, that we like kind of necessarily needed to say is like these iconic references, right? Which is Helter Skelter and the Gimme Shelter, but also like watching Gimme Shelter and like the Altamont Freeway, right? Like the whole incident of that.
The death of the 60s.
Which is like,
like culture.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is like, that was just like but that was more so like a feeling. That wasn't a visual, right? Like, that's just like a feeling, especially like
Right.
as like the election was like being like, oh, is Trump going to be president again? Like, what's happening?
Ooh.
Just like this kind of similar feeling happening.
Right.
Those songs were like touchstones for that, but they weren't at all the driving force in making the record. And actually, quite the opposite, I would say. We were like trying to live in our imagination, or like the world beyond that, even.
Of course.
More so.
Well, the big visual element that we haven't mentioned yet is pre-vaccine. We have an annual Art Institute membership, because it's really like, if we go twice a year and pay for both of us to get in, it's cheaper to get a membership if we're going a third time. And if you're like an adult who's ever walked into a museum, you realize that it's much better if you spend 90 minutes every couple weeks versus like 4 hours once a year. Like, you just get exhausted.
Sure.
So pre-vaccine, the Art Institute was open when nowhere else was open. So we would like mask up and go there, and it would just be empty. And so each week we would listen to our current mixes of where everything was at, and we made 60 songs for the record. I don't think we were ever listening to 60 songs, but we would be like, here's the latest version, and we would just like walk around the art institute from primitive to contemporary,
right,
and while listening and the songs and make notes on the mixes and the structures and everything.
Right. And it was like, it was probably more like 30 songs. And also because those two like records, the EP, Gimme Altamont and Giddy Skelter, were originally ideally supposed to be like a double LP, which nobody wants to put out anymore. So just like necessarily had to become those things. Like kind of after we tried to release it in that way. Well, it's interesting that we would have these days where we would go through our routes separately, our separate routes, but like, still going from like primitive art to like the contemporary wing. And being like, man, this sucks. we're like, is this a record? And like constantly having these changed feelings. And I think it's because of those, like that visual stimulus and like depending on where we landed maybe during a certain song and what we were looking at, we would have different feelings. And it wasn't even necessarily, it would usually be like one of us being like amazing, right? And then the other one of us being like, I don't know, so I think it was very important for us to have that. It's a huge privilege to walk around this incredible institution like kind of alone and dream, and then just and see how you react to these opposing art forms.
I really appreciate that. Like, and there's an interesting connection between primitive art and contemporary art or modern art, because there was an intuitive nature to primitive art, and then modern art was much more like, I don't know, academic or cerebral.
Conceptual?
Yeah, cerebral or conceptual, but it was often reusing motifs from primitive art, and it was kind of it was arriving backwards through like breaking things down analytically at what like primitive art was intuitively grasping at. And I could kind of hear I could hear that in your work, and because I noticed, like, I mean, with other projects you've done in the past, there's always been some level of abstraction, but this one really seems to, in some places, really really embrace abstraction.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I wonder if that has a connection also to this museum you're talking about. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I do feel like maybe you're our target audience here.
Actually,
you might be the guy.
Like, replicate yourself and become more people so we can make a living, because that would be incredible.
That would be nice for all of us.
I don't know, like, in terms of the abstraction or not, like, we're talking about primitive and contemporary, but those are obviously like the black and white of grayscale.
Sure.
So, like, if you look at the Gimme Altamont cover, it's like Toulouse-Lautrec, it's like that's like the middle of, I mean, obviously this is a warped scale, but like,
I appreciate that.
But yeah, it's like that's a sort of like middle ground between primitive and contemporary art. And so Toulouse-Lautrec took on a real kind of outsized influence on what we were doing in a lot of ways. Because also, like, a lot of this, people talk about their pandemic records, and it's like, it's boring to hear about because we all went through the same thing, and it kind of feels like a dream that we were all so isolated for so long. But also we were like talking about the woods, like we established this setting. Where are we? Deep in the woods? But actually no, we're in an apartment in the third biggest city in the richest country in history.
Yeah, it's true.
So it's weird to feel so isolated in Chicago.
Oh yeah, that's
so so Toulouse-Lautrec took on like, he's abstracting like nightlife and partying, but like with depth and feeling,
Yeah.
And that also reminds me that we were also, as everyone else I'm sure was, going on a lot of walks. And then walking around, our neighborhood and the neighborhoods around us, and just noticing the architecture.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Being like, look at this home.
Yeah.
And look at this home next to this home. And then think about the people in this home, and like that person that built that really bizarre brass staircase, like for no reason. And just like all these like really small details that you wouldn't have like ever thought about before, but that also was like a huge visual component to the record.
I don't have another, sorry.
That
That's wild. And that, gosh, that actually lends me to talk about your visual work that you both had on the website, because one of the things that I noticed that you sort of have in common visually, even though you have pretty distinct styles, is you have these individuated parts, like things that are like, here's something and then here's something else, and like it works together, but it's all distinct in that sort of that same way as like looking around and trying to find things individually out there or something.
Yeah. I mean, we called it sort of impulsively. Like I didn't, when we were having a Zoom with Kill Rock Stars to like see if we were going to work together, Slim, the owner of Kill Rock Stars, was like, what kind of music do you guys think you make? And I was like, I don't know, collage rock? Like making a joke about college rock.
Oh.
The like antecedent of college of indie rock was college rock, and I was like, I don't know, we make collage rock. So like when you asked about the abstractions, it's like I don't think we even, not to say we don't notice, but it's like when I hear a band and they like you were saying, like it's this part, then it's this part, then there's a key change. It's like, it's all about, evoking a feeling that feels real. And it's like, what's real to my experience is like the overlaying clashing patterns,
Yeah, I think, right. I mean, I think also what's similar about Tim and I's visual art is that, like, it is, of course, like collage. Like Tim is making actual collages. I'm doing more abstract paintings, but it's like, it's not a collage necessarily, or not always, of something that's identifiable. It's already like an abstraction, right? So it's like something that's abstracted and then collage into a further abstraction.
Right. Yeah.
Like the record, I think it's important to point out that the record is very sample based.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't sound like the Bomb Squad or something where you're like, or DJ Shadow where you're like, part of the fun is, I recognize that and they're in Congress together.
Right.
Things are really warped, but yeah, they're heavily processed, but there's a lot of samples.
Yeah, it seems to have really embraced
Well, it's like that what is the Genesis George article in the research, is it called Research Books? I don't even Yeah, the research books. I don't know which one it is, but I know that there is like an essay in there talking about, and Tim, I think, would explain this better than I would, but basically, do you want to just explain from here?
Well, I mean, it's basically like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, we see a lot of live music, like the last week before coming to visit her parents, We saw shit. Where do I start? We played 2 shows with 2 different bands. Well, we played 2 shows as me and Jenny. Then our kind of noise band played a show.
Mm-hmm.
We set up a Dan Higgs show. We saw Death Grips and The Cure. We saw Bill Nace and Haley Ford duo. And that was like a week. You know?
Hell yeah.
So it's kind of like yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
But it's so like William Burroughs, right? Like, so all these shows we go to, like, not very many of them are like rock bands. Like, we see a lot of techno and house and a lot of free jazz and improvised music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, quote unquote experimental music.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's meaningful to us to create things that people recognize as a pop format.
Oh, absolutely.
So like, we took these sort of Burroughs cut up ideologies, which, like, thank God he did them, but I don't need to do them 60 years later. You know, like,
Yeah.
we took those and sort of morphed them until they became poppy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
That makes sense. Yeah. Like that's
Yeah.
one of the things I wrote about in when I was writing the review for Giddy Skelter is that how it was so impressive to me that you mixed an obvious like extension of yourself in terms of like, I don't know if you like the word experimentalism, but like you were definitely pushing cutting edge what music can be, but you also retained the pop sensibility at the same time. Like you did both of them, which is
Thank you. That's definitely the goal.
hell yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important, especially for me, just because, like, going back to Looney Tunes or Tiny Toons, I'm sorry, and then also what I miss is, like, when I was growing up, I got this little soft case full of R&B cassettes that also included Celine Dion, and rightfully so.
Hell yeah.
But, you know, and I also grew up listening to just pop music, you know, so it's like, I'm saying Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, like boy bands. Like, I was a little girl once, believe it or not. And those things, like, I think there's just something so important and profound about, like, creating something that is, like, catchy that anybody could like, you know, but then also suggesting a different texture, a different frequency, you know, and doing it subtly, like almost as if it were hypnosis or something.
Yeah, I mean, like, basically, like, when we talk about our morning rituals and, like, the various occult processes that go into, like, letting the songs emerge, it's all about, like, making peace with, like, you know, the fundamental conflict between, like, being a spiritual being and a material being, right? And like, if we're strictly material beings, why do we have any feelings except for a biases for comfort or something, like? But it is that, and I've never thought this specifically in these terms, so excuse me if this is a little clumsy, but it's like, the way she's talking about it is like, we need to find the depth in the pop form. You know, we can't just abandon it, because that is the language that our culture speaks.
Right.
Even the subculture, that's the language the subculture speak, you know, like the punk bands are still conforming to the 3-minute song format.
Right. It's almost like the pop format is like the comfort, it's the body.
Right.
And then the other parts are like, you know, maybe the like lyrics and the like construction is the mind, and then the like textures and the sonic frequencies are the watcher of the mind.
Whoa, right.
I like that.
Yeah, and I mean, on a more immediate level, like all of our friends are musicians, but they all do like the vast majority of them do really far out abstract things compared to what we do.
Right.
And I think they might even think we're like a little silly, like,
I mean,
oh, you guys got
we're
this
like the
pop band.
cornballs. Like, my best friend, like who is Whitney Johnson, match us, shout out. Her last record, Tim actually played on, but her whole idea was like, this is the death of music, you know, like, and that's my bestie.
Oh,
So, you know, and I'm over here just being like, you know, at the end of the day, I just want to write a nice tune. I just want to write something that is going to bring a little light to people. But she's like, fuck that, death of music. Like, you tell me.
Yeah, so I think it is like finding depth and meaning within, like, I don't personally, I want to speak in the language of the culture that I'm in.
Sure.
While I'm rejecting the culture that I'm in every way that I need to or feel compelled to. But to adequately express that, you need to speak the same language.
That makes sense to me.
It's like a psyops.
Sure,
in a way.
Definitely that. Yeah. I think that's a good summary. What do you think? I think that's like a nice
absolutely.
opinion point.
Yeah, you're saying end it here. You're saying,
unless you
I think
have
it's
more you'd like to say. I mean,
no, it feels great. No,
that's great. No, it was
thank you so much,
such
Ryan.
a pleasure to talk to you. You're a absolute. This is like a really fun talk to have.
I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed reintroducing myself to all your past music and your future music and the lead up to this interview. And
great, thank you so much.
And I really enjoyed the album, the most recent album.
Thank you. Yeah, and you said you wrote a review.
Thank you.
I did. That will be in the October 1st edition. And then,
great.
And then the November 1st edition will be where this interview is. And
all right, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan.
And if you decide I'm trustworthy enough to have a fucking address, I'll send you a physical copy for free.
Oh, well, we'll subscribe. How about that?
Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I know, right? Right.
Okay.
Be the change you want in the world. Subscribe.
Well, I really enjoyed this, guys.
All right, us too. Thanks so much, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
Okay, take care. You too. Bye.